So, how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Charles Santino, the co-creator and creator of Rammur. How you doing, Charles?
Very good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So, how did you get involved in indie comic books?
Well, back in college, I met a fellow that wanted to draw comics and didn't know how to write them. We got together, started doing stuff for the college paper. And then after that, we started pitching to Marvel. And we both got some work. I ended up working on Savage Tales Volume 2 and which was a humor magazine, humor comic parodies, and Conan for a bit, about 7 issues of Conan in the late 80s.
Nice. So I got a question about working for Marvel. Is it like a big bullpen of like a bunch of artists, or do you send it in digitally?
Yeah, this was pre-internet, but we did meet with them in their offices, and after that, it was all done by phone and by mail. And so we were not on staff; we were independent contractors.
Nice. Well, what run of Conan did you do?
Issues 214 through 220. And they've been reprinted a couple of times in paperbacks, both by Marvel and Dark Horse had the franchise for a while. Marvel's got them again, and they'll be reprinted. Those issues will be reprinted again in an omnibus. I'm not quite sure how far out that is, but I know they're reprinting all the original books again.
Do you still get like royalties from it when they reprint it and stuff?
No, I was told I probably won't even get a copy of the book because the omnibuses are pretty expensive.
That's a little screwed up.
I think so.
I mean, if anything, give you a copy for your hard work.
You would think so, but I was told right up front probably wouldn't happen. The editor that contacted me about the omnibus said he'd put in a request, but couldn't make any promises.
Wow. All right. With that being said, would you still work for Marvel today?
It depends. One of the problems I have working with the big two or anybody with these franchises that go back decades and decades is, quite frankly, I'm really not qualified. And by that, I mean, I don't really know the histories of these characters. I read comics pretty consistently in the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. And after that, so sporadically that I'm not really the person for that in terms of the history. A lot of these writers and creators, they know everything about every character. And if I was told I could write a standalone story that didn't have to tie into any other continuity, I could take a crack at that. And I like the characters, but it's just that gigantic universe that's so hard for me to get my arms around.
Which character would you like to draw?
Boy, on DC probably Batman, and Marvel. That's a better question because there's so many characters. Maybe Iron Man. I'm not sure.
Okay. And your book Rumble, is it out?
Rammur.
Rammur, sorry.
Yeah. It just came out on Amazon December 31st. It had been available as a digital download on Comicsology for a year already. And I did a crowdfunding. The crowdfunding in the middle of the year was intended to get the book into print because my publisher, Marcosia, up until recently did not do print available on individual issues, just on the trade collections. And I found out after I did the crowdfunding and I was ready to print that they were able to do print. So I just ordered print copies in advance from their service, from their publishing and print on demand service. And instead of being a floppy, saddle stitch wraparound comic book, it's with a square binding, and it's 48 pages. So it kind of looks like a mini book or graphic novel rather than a comic book. So that it's still available on Indiegogo in demand if anybody wants a signed copy or a poster or something like that. But if they just want to buy a copy of it straight up, they can go to Amazon and get the print version and Comicsology for the digital. And it's spelled Rammur, Rammur.
So what's the book about?
Rammur is a master thief in a future police state. So there's a 7-word elevator pitch that might be one of the shortest in entertainment. And the stories are all self-contained. The first book is called Part 1 of the Corvus trilogy, which is really more of a marketing technique. There's a bad guy that's going to be in the first 3 issues. In the first issue, he isn't seen, he isn't named, but he's kind of in the background, and he gets things going. He hires Rammur to rob something from a museum, and that goes horribly wrong, and that's how that story gets started. In the second part, which will be sometime this year, we'll meet Corvus, and we'll see what he looks like, and then again, in the third part, he's in the background. But all of the stories are self-contained. The first issue has 4 stories, a 24-page lead story with Rammur, a 6-page backup story with Rammur, and then a couple of backup stories and a backup feature called Top's Tales of the Police State. The artist is Paulo Perez. He's the main artist. Backup artist is Marco Perugini. Paulo Perez is in Brazil. Marco is in Italy. I found Paulo online. Marco reached out to me, and I hired him. There's some other artists in there as well.
Nice. How did you get the chance to work on Margot, Intergalactical Trash Collector?
Jim Whiting is local to me, upstate New York, and he's a friend of mine. And I've been looking at what he's been doing with Margot for quite some time. And when I saw that there was an opportunity to do a short story with him, I pitched an idea which he liked. And I only had one requirement, that he draw it, because sometimes he uses other artists. And he agreed to that. And it was a real collaboration because the story was a little bit different in its original format. The character that harasses Margot, the young Margot in that story, it's a kind of an origin story, was a male, and he turned it into a female, which I think actually worked a little better. And some of the dialogue and some of the captions were changed a little bit. But he did a great story. I mean, he did a great work on the art and the coloring. I can't remember who the colorist was, but I think he was new to the book and did a great job as well. So I was very happy with working with Jim.
Oh yeah. And you said you had a big announcement for us that couldn't be.
Yeah. Well, that was the fact that the book is now available in print. That Rammur.
Okay.
Is available in print. It had been available digitally on Comicsology and Drive-Thru Comics for a year, but now it's available in print, Amazon, other places as well. I think I spotted it on Target, of all places, and
Wow.
And Barnes & Noble. So I guess there's a bunch of places that it's available. And I think it's available pretty much worldwide, and because it's print on demand, if you order it, let's say you're in the UK, you order it there, it's printed there. And if you order it in the United States, it's printed here. And it's printed one at a time. That's print on demand. I remember seeing print on demand 20 years ago, and it was in its infancy. The books didn't look that great. You could always tell it was print on demand. But now it's so slick that I don't think I'd be able to tell that it was print on demand and not a normal print run.
Right. Can we get it at our comic shops?
Possibly. It's the problem there is that the distributor is Ingram, Ingram, I believe. They've been around since the beginning of time for bookstores, for normal bookstores. Pretty much any book you've ever purchased in a regular bookstore was distributed by Ingram, But most comic book shops don't do business with Ingram. They don't even know they exist. So if somebody wants to get it through a comic book shop, they would have to get it through Ingram. And that's a big problem for most comic book shops to set up a new distributor. Back in the 80s, there were maybe a dozen distributors. And now there had been one up until recently. And when Diamond lost the monopoly on distribution, that became a good thing and a bad thing. A bad thing because the comic book shops now had to deal with 2 or 3, maybe even 4 distributors, and there's no easy way to do it. There's no cheap, simple program where they can go into their computer and order whatever they want in one place and have it get fulfilled by the various distributors they deal with. So I would say their best bet, somebody's best bet, is going to Amazon or to Comicsology if they want digital. If they want a signed copy and a poster, they can go to Indiegogo.
Okay. I guess are you going to be attending any Comic Cons?
I will probably be walking around the New York convention as I did last year. And it's a little too expensive to get a booth, and sometimes it's hard to even get a booth. Jim Whiting wasn't allowed to have a booth at New York Comic Con, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, I don't have any scheduled. I'm not ruling out the possibility of attending one and having a table, though.
But if you do one, you'll be in the New York area?
I'll definitely be at the New York convention walking around.
Okay. I guess if y'all see Charles out there, get him to sign your book.
I can do that.
Has anyone brought up Conan to you to sign yet?
I get asked to do that at shops when I'm in a comic book shop, or sometimes at a show. Somebody will bring one to me and they'll want it. They'll want to sign it. And it's funny because there's another local artist that worked a lot for Marvel in the 80s, John Ebert, and he was able to get a table, no problem, even though he's not doing a lot now except commissions, because in this industry, as I described it to him, I said, you are what you were. And the fact that I did Conan back in the 80s, that's something I can hang my hat on forever. I still get asked about that, and I talk about that, and I never suspected in the 80s that just doing Conan would have the legs that it had, even in the short run of just 7 issues.
7, yeah. That's awesome, though. I guess what advice would you give to newcomers to the indie comic community?
Today, it's easier and harder than it's ever been. It's easier because you can produce something on your own and get it out there. But that's why it's hard, because there's a million people doing it. So it's easier. You don't need a big company behind you to do it, but you need to cut through the noise and get to people and promote it. And I found that promoting Rammur was more work than producing the comic book. I probably spend literally 10 times more time promoting it. And during the campaign, which was in the summer, I did at least 20 interviews, and I was constantly posting online, which I need to be doing more of, and I will as the second issue ramps up. But I would say hone your skills, get your stuff out there, and just promote it.
How far are you being done with the second issue?
The second issue is completely drawn and lettered and and inked, written, everything except lettering. I just have to get the lettering on number 2, but that's done. So that'll come out probably October 1st. The third issue is being inked and the fourth issue is being plotted. And I wish I could come out with them more frequently, but it's just a matter of financing and scheduling.
Mm-hmm. All right. Where can people find you? Are you on all social medias?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook as Charles Santino, and also Rammur and Topps Tales of the Police State. That's the name of one page. Rammur being Rammur. There's a bunch of people out there named Rammur, and I didn't know that when I used the name. I think it might be an Indian or Pakistani name. I'm not sure, but Rammur, and that's why I added Topps Tales of the Police State. People can find me on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
Under the same name?
Yep, Charles Santino.
All right. So how did the origin of Rammur, why'd you name your book Rammur?
Well, I wanted to call him Rammur with an ER, and that name comes from the equipment that he wears, the Ram scoop that sucks in hydrogen atoms, and he's got a mini fusion reactor on his backpack, and that turns the hydrogen atoms into energy, and that feeds the energy to his wrist blasters and his leg jets. So I wanted to call him Rammur, but I wanted to have that web address. I wanted to have that name. So I punched that in, and it turns out it's a company in Finland producing heavy equipment. And Rammur is one of their pieces of equipment. So I thought, okay, that's taken. How about Rammar? I thought, okay, that still sounds about the same. Well, that's a chain of grocery stores in Turkey. So I thought, okay, one more shot here. I'm running out of vowels. Rammur. That was available, so I grabbed it. And I thought that's actually pretty good because it does take place in the future. It does have a little bit of a science fiction aspect to it. So having a kind of weird spelling is not a bad thing.
All right. I guess, is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, just that just look up the UR. Rammur, Rammur, not ER or AR. And anybody who emails me through a Facebook Messenger, I'll get them on my mailing list. And I'm going to do a free preview digital issue of Rammur #2 within the next few months. So they'll get that free, and they'll get any newsletters that I do, and they'll be able to stay on top of things with me.
All right, great. Thank you for taking the time to come talk with us.
Thank you.